What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel here on YouTube. I'm NextJGGen24, and today I want to talk about Amazing Day because overall I could say it was an amazing day. Sorry, had to get that bad joke out of there. But in all seriousness, it was such a fun day for me as a Mets fan. Now, if you were unable to if you were unable to attend the festivities, listen, it was a lot of fun, and if you ever get if they continue doing this every single year, I recommend you get a chance to be able to go to New York City. Even if you only go there for the merchandise or meeting the legends, that's enough as it is. That's worth the trip to New York City. So I certainly hope you get a chance, but I was very fortunate enough to be able to go, and you know I'll explain what it is that I liked, what I didn't like, and overall, what do I see this continuing moving forward. So I gotta tell you, I got the wrong impression about what Amazing Day was. When I first heard about this, I thought it was like a pep rally. Something to kind of pump up the fan base before the season starts. Like how they do pep rallies at high school football games before the team goes off for a big game or whatever. That's kind of what I thought this was, but it actually wasn't. I mean, in a way it was, but in a way it also wasn't because this was a collaboration with the city of New York to really get the fans to experience all of New York City. And in that aspect, like that's not really what I was interested in. I was more interested in the merchandise, like this hat here. As you can see, if I turn to the right, it's got the Amazing Day patch right here. So very cool design right there. I was also interested in meeting the legends, and I'll show you what I mean just as an example. I have this picture here. So that is me alongside 86 World Series Mets, Howard Johnson, and Roger McDowell. Two fantastic guys, like two great legends for the Mets. And I was so happy to meet them over at the MLB store in New York City, which ironically is only a couple blocks up from where I work. Huh. And I never knew that. So, but it didn't start out that way. I just want to make that clear. Okay, it did not start out by going to the MLB store and meeting Howard Johnson and Roger McDowell. The festivities, they started over in Queens because they were promoting a Queens public library. And they actually had Mookie Wilson and Tim Tuffle there promoting a special edition Mets library card. Now, I didn't get to go to that because, like I said, I wasn't very interested in exploring New York City. I was mainly interested in just what was in Manhattan. Was there something at Citi Field? That kind of stuff. So Mookie Wilson and Tim Tuffle were in Queens. Howard Johnson and Roger McDowell were at the MLB store in New York City. That's on 51st Street. And then there were also two more legends that were part of the festivities, something I didn't know about. And this is Turk Wendell and Glendon Rush. So overall, you had 6 Mets alumni going around New York City. It's actually funny because Glendon Rush, I almost met him. I went down. There were multiple pop-up trucks with free merchandise they were giving out, as long as you signed up for the sweepstakes. And Glendon Rush was at one of the pop-ups in New York City. I think this is the one that was at Union Square South. So we're talking like we're talking 17th Street and Broadway. This was, and he was out there handing out all the merchandise, which were, by the time that I had gotten there, they were just hats, sun hats. There was an Autism Awareness Day hat, which I love that. Like, I love the autism awareness is such an important cause to me, like personally. So obviously I wanted that hat. I wanted this hat, of course, so I got this. And then I came to find out a little bit later that around around the same area at a Citibank, they were giving away bobbleheads of 2019 NL Rookie of the Year Pete Alonso. And had I known that, I would have been over there in a heartbeat. That would have been the first place that I went to. I can't believe I missed out on it, but at the end of the day, what I did end up getting out of it, and I'll show you right here, is the Jerry Koosman bobblehead. So this was one of the free stuff that they were giving out as long as you were signed up for the sweepstakes. And I love that because Koosman is such a legend for the Mets. I didn't really get a chance to go to his jersey retirement ceremony. I think that was, how long ago was that? It was a couple of years ago. And at that point, I really didn't have the time to go out to Citi Field. So, I missed out on that opportunity, but I'm glad that I was able to pick up that bobblehead. I wish I could have gotten Pete Alonso, but I just didn't know they were even giving that away. And by the time I did know, it was already too late. They were gone. But I gave up Pete Alonso for Jerry Koosman. But to be fair, I think that's a fair trade-off. And if I could have had both, that would have been great. But I'm happy with the Koosman bobblehead that I did get. And that one's definitely a keeper for me. Now, meeting Howard Johnson and Roger McDowell at the MLB store was fantastic. Like, such wonderful guys. Roger introduced himself almost immediately. And I know because I was the first person that they met at the store. I actually got there an hour before they started. And it got to be a pretty long line. It was, I would say there was about 30 or 40 people behind me when they finally opened up the doors. And Howard Johnson and Roger McDowell are just some of the nicest people in the world. So, I thank them as well as Mookie, Tim, Glendon, and Turk for being part of that whole day. I wish I had gotten a chance to meet Turk and Glendon and Mookie and Tim, but you know what? I'm not going to complain about meeting Hojo or McDowell. Certainly not. And it's actually pretty funny because I realized this a lot later than I probably should have. Turns out I also met one of the owners for the Mets. So while I was standing outside the store, Alex Cohen, the wife of Steve Cohen, came up to us. I didn't know it was Alex at the time. Okay, she came up to us in this really nice white jacket, and she was telling us, "Oh, thank you for coming out here. Thank you for being part of the festivities." And I said, "Oh, oh, no problem. Thank you for doing this." Like, I just thought that she was part of the staff. That's how well she actually blends in with the crowd. Like, I'm sure people could pick out Steve Cohen, no problem. But Alex Cohen, I didn't even realize it. So I ended up finding out later on because of another Mets fan that I follow on Twitter. He posted a picture that he took with Alex Cohen. And I recognized the white jacket, and I was like, son of a gun. I met Alex Cohen, and I didn't even know it. So I love that that Alex Cohen and maybe even Steve Cohen were part of the festivities. I love that. It was just, it was great. Had I known it was Alex Cohen, I probably would have been bowing to her. Like, I am not worthy. I am not worthy. So, and then, of course, after meeting McDowell at the MLB store, they were also giving away this Tom Seaver statue, replica statue, which, again, I watched this ceremony. I watched the Tom Seaver statue unveiling ceremony live while I was at work. Don't tell my boss. Don't worry, he's a Mets fan too, so he understands. But I didn't get a chance to be able to go to that game. So being able to get that, and what I had to do to get that was basically just buy something from the MLB store that was Mets related. And I wish I still had the T-shirt with me, but basically it was a T-shirt that had the neon of the from outside Shea Stadium, like a design for the neon that was outside Shea Stadium. It had the catcher on it, and yeah, it was expensive for a T-shirt, but I feel like that the T-shirt along with the replica statue that made it worth it. So you know, overall, I love that part. That part was great. The only, I guess, things after that just kind of got boring. You know, eventually I made my way down to 17th Street and Broadway to that merchandise truck. And I did end up getting a couple more hats. I talked about the autism awareness hat. I also got an Italian hat as well. But, you know, after that, then I was like, okay, well, is there something over at Citi Field? Now, not to their faults, not to the Cohens or the Mets' fault, but it turned out the subway heading uptown, the F&M subway was having problems, and they couldn't. So they were basically blocked off from 17th or 14th Street all the way to 34th Street, which is a pretty long walk. So, and then I also came to find out that the 7 train to get out to Citi Field was doing repairs in Manhattan. So not only could I not get out to Citi Field, I also couldn't get back to Manhattan from Citi Field using the 7 train. I had to use the LIRR and transfer at Woodside. And by the time that all happened, the events at Citi Field were already done. So I missed out on that, and I hate it. I wish there were, you know, more stuff, and especially more than just a little league baseball game at Citi Field. Like, you know, why not do something with Mr. and Mrs. Met? Why not? They were promoting all the new foods that they were going to be selling at Citi Field. Why not have the fans come in for a taste test? You know, see if it's something that they would be interested in doing. So that's not to criticize and say it was completely pointless or it was a really bad part. It wasn't. Just kind of like, I kind of wish there was more to it than just a little league game. You know, something that was a little more interactive with the fans is all I'm asking for. And then even after all that, after I got back from Citi Field, there was just nothing. By that time, all the pop-up trucks had gone. They were gone. And the MLB store, you know, they still had the Mets stuff out there, but McDowell was gone, and there were only like sun hats and a Scherzer t-shirt that my friend ended up getting because he bought Mets gear as well. So after that, it just, the only thing left to do, and I kind of questioned this part, was go get a free Coke at a restaurant. A free Coke. Okay. All right. You know, fine. That's a free drink. Only problem is that the drink that we got or the drink that I got, and I believe my friend also got it as well, was vanilla Coke. I don't necessarily mind that, but I was kind of hopeful that it would be the regular Coke. If there were, but I guess the you know, to look at it at the other side, it could have been Diet Coke. It could have been that, and that would have thoroughly disgusted me. So, you know, Coke vanilla, okay, but after that, unless you were in some of the sweepstakes or you were like the first 25 fans at some of the shows, there was just nothing. So overall, for me, Mets Amazin' Day probably ended around like 1 or 2 o'clock, and that sucks because my friend didn't even get into the city until 3:30. So if you get so after that, what was the point of being in the city at all? If you weren't going to be one of the first 25 fans for the shows, and if you didn't win the sweepstakes for those ticketed events, then there was no point in you staying in the city. So overall, I'd like to see. I think Amazing Day was awesome, especially if you were an early bird and you got to experience so much. It was great meeting two Mets legends, one of the owners for the Mets. It was all great. Just I wish it could have been on a little bit longer. And if it's not going to be that, like they didn't make it clear that the pop-up trucks were eventually going to leave. So I think next time, give a heads up notice saying, hey, we've run out of supplies or we're done with these pop-up merchandise trucks. They're gone now. And at least just save people who didn't want to come, who were hoping to get some stuff by coming in to say, just save them a trip. So that, or just extend more festivities, like have something in Times Square. Times Square would be a great place to gather all kinds of Mets fans, maybe do a meet and greet with Mr. and Mrs. Met. Mr. and Mrs. Met are very popular. Believe me, you could get more than enough fans to come to Times Square for a Mr. and Mrs. Met. So overall, it was great. You know, great merchandise. The hat, the Kuzman bobblehead, the Seaver statue, meeting Howard Johnson and Roger McDowell. Definitely, thumbs up on that. In terms of everything after that, wish there could have been more events. You know, make me want to stay in the city for up until those ticketed events start. Because otherwise, I would have been out of the city probably around 3:30, and I would have gone home, and that would have been it. So that's my overall thoughts. You know, great idea. If they bring it back next year, I'd love to participate in it. And if they want to bring in new legends, all the more better. Just have it go on for a little bit longer. You know, maybe 5 o'clock or 3 to 4:30 have some kind of a meet and greet with Mr. and Mrs. Met in Times Square. You know, because again, I was not interested in exploring the Brooklyn Museum or any of the Met cloisters. I hope I'm saying that right. So, not that I didn't want to experience culture. It's just I was interested in the Met stuff and all the Brooklyn Museum. What does that have to do with the Mets? Other than they were just promoting it? Oh, I got in if I wore a Mets hat? Okay, so they have Mets stuff? No. So what's the point of me visiting the museum? You know? So, again, not to criticize or not to say this was a terrible event. It was great all around. Just, I would like to see a little more engagement in terms of team stuff. Because I think that's what a lot of the fans wanted to see, was a lot of merchandise, a lot of meet and greets with the players, even the mascots and the team owners. And, you know, it was a great day. It was a great day. I had a lot of fun, and I recommend if they do this again next year, I recommend anyone who can get into New York City, get into New York City and witness this, because this is a lot of fun. You can walk away with something like a Jerry Kuzman bobblehead, a Tom Seaver replica statue, a Pete Alonso 2019 NL Rookie of the Year bobblehead. You can walk away with so many great stuff. And so it is very much worth it to make it into the city if you can. Just, I hope there's a lot more events next year that are more centered around the team and, you know, just get us hyped about the upcoming season, the upcoming 2023 season. This is going to be a lot of fun, guys. Great event. It was a great event. It really was. So, you know, those are my overall thoughts on it. I'd like to hear what yours were. Maybe you'd like to share your story about meeting Mookie or Alex or Steve or whoever. You know, just leave it down in the comments. Let me know, because this was a really fun event. I had a lot of fun with this. And I can't wait to have it next year. And I certainly can't wait to be going to a lot more Mets games this year. So thank you guys for watching. Again, leave your comments below. and make sure to give me a follow here, or give me a follow here on my social medias. YouTube, of course, you could subscribe and like the video. You can also follow me on Twitter. My handle's right there. You can also follow me on Instagram because I have some pictures that I should be posting to Instagram fairly soon. So I hope to see you guys in my next video. Thanks, guys.